With update 1.3 fast approaching Zenless Zone 0, it's time for us to talk about the two upcoming limited S-rank characters, Lighter and Yanagi. I'm going to be talking about what you can expect to see from their kits, how they are going to function with different units and how they are going to fit into different teams, as well as pull value and generally how much value they are going to add to your account. Because remember, Zenless Zone 0 is a gacha game and these are all about resource investment, and you need to make informed decisions when deciding to go for a character, so you don't end up wasting all of your limited resources. Naturally, if you are a whale, then this is no problem for you, but with that being said, my name is DarkHero and let's get started. So by now, we all know that Lighter is going to be a fire type stunner, while Yanagi is going to be an electric anomaly unit. And of course, a very important thing about these two characters to take into account is that there is already a fire stunner and an electric anomaly character in the game, those being Koleda and Grace respectively. So one could infer from this, along with the fact that Lighter and Yanagi are limited characters as opposed to Koleda and Grace, which are standard characters, as you're always able to get them in the standard banner, and if you lose a 50-50 on a character banner, you have a chance of getting them. So you could argue that Lighter and Yanagi are going to be vertical upgrades over those two characters. But that might not necessarily be the entire story. So let's go a bit more into detail about Lighter. Now so far we have only had one limited stun character in the game in the form of Yi, and she's an amazing character, being able to build up stun very quickly, while also increasing the damage that your team can do if she gains enough stacks. Apart from her, the other three stunners that we have are Anby, which is an A rank unit, and then Koleda and Lycaon. Now Koleda is a bit more of a burst stunner, meaning that whenever she uses the X special after the second and fourth hit of her combo, she's going to deal a lot more damage and apply a lot more daze. But she's not the type of character that is going to spend a lot of time on field, unlike Lycaon that is a stunner that builds up a lot of daze by using his heavy attack combos, and can even apply an ice defense shred to the enemy, allowing characters like Ellen to deal more damage. And I think that Lighter is going to go much more in the direction of Lycaon as opposed to all of the other stunners that we currently have in the game, being a character that likes to spend time on field, not necessarily as much as someone like Yi for example, and while Lighter attacks the enemies, he's likely going to apply some sort of debuff or stacks that will allow characters to deal increased damage. And I think that that is going to be the key to deciding whether or not Lighter is going to be valuable for your account. Now given that Lighter is part of the Sons of Kaiden faction, he likely is going to have some way of increasing the damage that characters from that faction are going to deal. So it could be that he's going to buff the damage of fire characters, since Bernice is the latest character and Lighter is going to follow right after her, or perhaps even physical characters since we do have Caesar. And speaking of which, you are likely even going to be able to pair up both Lighter and Caesar, having her act as a support for the team, and combining the damage increase of Lighter with Caesar would allow a character like Bernice or perhaps a future fire dedicated attack character to deal much more damage. There is a chance that Lighter is going to boost the damage of characters besides the fire element, so let's say for example if Lighter were to boost the damage of ice characters, then you could totally replace Lycaon on Ellen's team and pair those two units with Soukaku or potentially even Caesar, and you would have a very powerful team. However, the problem with Lighter is that currently there is no character that is going to require him on the team. What I mean by this is that, for example, let's say that Lighter is going to boost the damage of just about any character. Well, we already know that anomaly characters don't really need a stun unit on their team, and in fact they perform a lot better by going the double anomaly team, especially with Bernice, and then having a character like Lucy that can boost the damage of both characters. All the current on-field attack characters already have a very well set team with a dedicated stunner. So for example, the mono ice teams have Lycaon, Grace's mono electric team have Yi, and even Ju1 has Yi as well. So in terms of how valuable Lighter is going to be for your account and how worth it is going to be to pull for him, is mostly going to come down to how many stunners do you have on your account, or rather do your teams need a stunner different than the ones you may have, because you may not have Yi because she was a limited unit and it's going to take a long time for her to return. But when it comes to Lycaon and even Koleda, because they are standard unit characters, you are inevitably at one point going to end up losing a 50-50, at which point you may get one of them. Not to mention that after doing the 300 summons on the standard standard banner, you are going to be able to pick from one of these standard characters, at which point you would be able to pick Lycaon, which is certainly the better option if you require a stunner. Now the damage bonus that Lighter can provide might potentially be insane, but with characters like Chingy or Caesar already being in the game, and many of you likely already have some of them, I currently don't see too many reasons to opt to go for Lighter unless you are dedicated into the possibility of us getting later down the road a dedicated on-field fire attacker that is going to benefit from having Lighter on the team. And who knows, maybe by then we'll have a much better stunner available to us, but don't let me stop you from pulling for Lighter if you like him as a character or his design overall. Because hey, let's be honest, there is currently a male drought in Zenless Zone 0, and I know that there is a big fanbase dedicated to him that have been waiting for his arrival for a very long time. So if you are one of the Lighter fans, I totally get it. And hey, thank you Hoyoverse for inventing men. Now as for Yanagi, the situation is a little bit more interesting. As I said before, we do already have Grace as an electric anomaly unit, but unlike Grace, who is a dedicated on-field unit, that is to say that Grace likes to spend time on field to deal damage and build up the shock anomaly, I believe that Yanagi is going to be somewhat similar to Bernice, and with that I mean somewhat of an off-field unit, and the reason for that is the Chaos Jazz Drive disc, as its 4P set bonus directly states that it boosts fire and electric damage, and that damage is increased while the character is off-field. And guess what? We currently do not have an electric off-field character in Zenless Zone 0. Well, I guess you could argue that Rina can do some off-field damage with her puppets, but she's not really a dedicated off-field damage dealer, and there is a chance that Yanagi is going to do exactly that. So she may not necessarily replace Grace, and might instead actually be a good teammate for Grace. Though I guess you could potentially be going overboard with the shock anomaly, and you might just be better off by having two different anomaly characters on the team to trigger disorder. And it's because we are currently unsure of how Yanagi is going to perform and how fast she's going to build up the shock anomaly that it's very difficult to state right now as to whether or not she's going to likely be a skip or a get. Another thing to keep in mind is that because currently there is no limited S-rank electric damage dealer, you might want to get Yanagi just to cover the element, because we all know that the endgame of ZZZ, the shield defense, will have the different floors rotating between which elements the enemy is weak to and which elements the enemy resists, and so having different elemental coverage is going to be very important to be able to clear all of the floors and get the full rewards. Now the counter argument is that if you are currently able to clear all of the floors very well, you have ample time left, and let's say that for example if the enemy wasn't weak to the element you were using, you would still be able to clear it and get the full rewards without that damage bonus, then you don't really need to invest into a new DPS character this soon, and you might be better off saving for 1 or 2 patches for when the new best DPS character is revealed, because eventually this game is going to run into some power creep, which is why going for all kinds of DPS characters is not necessarily the best idea. If you played Honkai Star Rail, you might remember that whenever Imbibitor Lune as well as Jingliu released, everybody was hyping them up, myself included, as the new benchmark for how powerful a character can be in the game, until eventually we got characters like Acheron, and now we even have Fei Xiao and Firefly, and the damage performance of those two characters are nowhere near close, and I don't even want to get started on Scylla. So do keep in mind that while these characters are designed to be synergistic with each other, to be as appealing as possible for you to summon in the game and end up spending money, just remember that at the end of the day, what's important is that you have fun with the game. So summon for the characters that you like, and do be somewhat mindful about the characters that you choose to invest into, because they might end up being not that great, or maybe they might not synergize with other characters you have on your account. And one key thing to take into account when deciding to summon for these characters is how well invested are the rest of your cast, because if you already have a very well built stun character together with an anomaly team that does not require a stunner, are you really going to need a replacement, especially if you have, for example, Lycaon's M1 with Lycaon's W engine? If you have already put a lot of resources into one of these characters and they are performing well in helping you clear the endgame, you might want to think twice about getting a different character that is going to replace them, which you would need to invest a lot of time and resources to level them up, get all of their skills up, maybe get their dedicated W engine or perhaps a replacement, though I guess in Lighter's case, he is likely going to perform well with Lycaon's Lycaon's W engine, since from what we saw of him, he seems to be a fast and agile character, so he's likely going to attack multiple times and thus benefit from Lycaon's W engine. So ultimately, going for a character just because they might be meta, and you might not even enjoy their playstyle or how they look, is definitely something that you should not do, as I did before, and I'm never doing it again. Lastly, you need to take into account how these characters are going to perform with upcoming characters later down the road. So after the 1.3 update with Lighter and Yanagi, we are likely going to be getting the 1.4 update, which I would bet is going to be focused around the Section 6 characters, and they would likely be Haramusa as well as Hoshimi Miyabi. So if for example you are the type of person that has been saving for Miyabi, you might want to sit tight with your Primo Gems. I still say Primo Gems, dude, I have PTSD from that game. So let me know if you guys are excited for both Lighter and Yanagi, and are you planning on pulling for any of them? Me personally, I'm very excited for Yanagi. I'm always down for a girl with glasses, and her design is giving me Kafka vibes, so I'm excited for that. With that being said, subscribe to win the next 50-50, or I owe you a cookie.